morning, dear students. I welcome once again to the second session of Plant Taxonomy and Embryology of second BSc Taxonomy class series. So let's quickly recall what we have discussed in the last session, that we have studied Introduction to Plants Taxonomy and taxonomical hierarchy and the basic components of taxonomy. The basic components of taxonomy, we have mainly concentrated on identifying a plant, then naming the plant and accordingly classifying it. While talking about identification of a plant, we have studied little bit of taxonomical resources, that we identify a plant after collecting, after writing all the morphological characters. We identify that plant by making use of herbarium. We have used that word from the institutions, from the universities, from scientific centers where they store the plant material. So that is one of the taxonomical resources. So in this session, we are going to study regarding this herbarium, which is we can also call as a smiling garden of everlasting flowers. So in this entire world, there's only plant has the life after its death also, I can say, because if you dry that flowers, that also life, and it will be smiling at you always. You might be having a little experiences in your childhood. You might have pressed some leaves in your notebooks and some flowers in your notebooks, and you might have gifted that your friends. Or I've seen some students making greeting cards out of these dried leaves and dried flowers. It is so beautiful, that has a lot of life in it. So we are going to study something which is going to help for our plant identification in this session. That is nothing but herbarium. We have many more taxonomical resources, like we use flora, we use botanical garden live specimens, and we have monographs, journals and manuals, etc. Herbarium is one of the taxonomical resources. In this session, we'll study the introduction, brief history, significance of herbarium, and various kinds of herbaria, herbaria of the famous herbaria of the world and India. Now let's see what is herbarium. Herbarium is a storehouse as collection of dried and pressed plant specimens. So it is a storehouse or a collection of a dried and pressed plant specimens collected from different places and arranged according to some known system of classification to facilitate identification, nomenclature and preservation of the records for future purpose. If you want to identify any plant, you can make use of this herbarium. So what is herbarium? Herbarium is a storehouse or a collection of dried and pressed plant specimens collected from various parts of the world and arranged according to some known system of classification for future use. In this picture which I have seen, you can see that one of the specimen which is dried and pressed into a sheet, that is known as herbarium. So we can compare this herbarium with the library. See, in the library we will have a book set of books, whereas in case of this herbarium, this is a library of biological informations. It consists of specimens collected from various parts of the world over broad geographic ranges over many years, and also multiple samples of species also collected from different habitats are typically preserved, so that variation among the individuals also can be documented and related to the ecological and evolutionary factors. That means a same species, which is present in our locality and some other country, some other continent, it will be collected and at various times and various places, and it will be compared to see the ecological adaptations and evolutionary changes in that particular plant. See, there are certain set of basic rules that you should follow while making herbarium. That we'll discuss more in detail in next class, but I just want to mention this here. See, I said we collect more specimens, multiple specimens of individuals. But when we are collecting multiple specimens, we should always remember that we should avoid taking something of everything or last thing of anything. So we are the botanist, we are the biologist, we are supposed to save the earth's biodiversity. So what we should do when we go for plant collection, we should be very, very, very careful. There is a general thumb rule that, it's a very good thumb rule that we should take a small set of samples from a large population of plants. So you remember that you collect plant very carefully, how much ever you required, better not throw anything. So herbarium, we collect plants from the various resources, and these individual specimens are dried, and by taking care of all essential parts also. See, when you take a plant, you should take care that it should have leaves, and if it has some reproductive parts like flowers, fruits, and inflorescence and seeds, everything you should preserve. In case of these type of plant collection, it will be different for various plants. For example, it is a small plant, herb, for example, herbs. These specimens will be maybe whole plants, herbs. You can see in that picture which I have shown that plants all right from roots, you can take everything and you can dry and you can press against the sheets. Whereas big trees, what we do, we collect at least 25 centimeters length the plant specimen. If it is more than that also, we collect, but when we press it in different manner, which we discuss in the next class. So there are these plant parts that we have collected and pressed and put it on a paper. These will be kept in some wooden or steel cupboards which have some holes known as pigeonholes, and they are kept directly away from the sunlight. I've shown in the picture, you see this is one of the New York's museum where you can see that herbarium racks. And one more thing is, it's very important to maintain the temperature in between 18 degrees centigrade to 22 degrees centigrade, and temperature and humidity between 45 to 55% of relative humidity. So that is very, very important. So I have discussed, if you collecting a small plants, you should collect as a whole plant. If you're collecting a big plants, you take a twig gulp, almost 25 centimeters. Suppose if you are going for some plants which are either succulents or unsuitable for pressing and drying techniques, what we do is we take them and put it in a liquid preservatives, suitable preservatives, and we take it in glass bottles and we add some liquid preservatives, usually 2 to 5% of formaldehyde or FAA solution. F is formaldehyde, acetone and alcohol in 5:5:90 ratio, and we preserve them. That you can see that in the picture. Whereas in case of very big woody specimens like gymnosperm cones and big seeds and palm fronds, and all these can be air dried, labeled properly, and it can be stored in glass boxes. I have shown you in the picture, that is a Botanical Survey of India, Kolkata photo, where all these cones of gymnosperms are labeled and displayed in glass boxes. You can clearly see in that picture. Small specimens such as seeds and floral parts, bark, roots, mosses, ferns, lichens, etc., they will be usually air dried and put into a small paper or polythene pockets, and it will be well labeled and stored. So whatever it is, whatever form we store, the plant material that we collect, that should be dried properly, pressed properly, and also labeled properly. So that is, and these should be arranged according to some classification for identification. So that is nothing but herbarium. So thus, this, we can say this herbarium is a depository of great filing system in information about plants, primarily in the form of actual specimens. We can say that actual specimens, we get them. Direct specimens, it will act as direct source. Indirectly, that notes which has written on that or label, we can say, on that sheet label, this sheet and the photographs which are attached as they act as secondary sources for identification. So the plant material that we collect, what we do, we dry it and press it against a sheet. That plain sheet also is known as, usually that is handmade sheet, that is also is known as herbarium. The complete plant material which is pressed against a herbarium sheet like this, something like this, we can say usually 29 centimeters to 45 centimeters length herbarium sheet will be used for pressing. This is also known as herbarium. The place where it is stored also is known as herbarium. So that word used twice. So herbarium is a vast reservoir of plant. This herbarium sheet, you see, it has label. So all these things we'll discuss in the next session when we learn the herbarium techniques. So what is herbarium? Herbarium is a vast reservoir of plants which helps in identification. So now I think students it is clear what is herbarium. So let's quickly say again the definition of herbarium. Herbarium is a storehouse or collection of dried pressed plant material collected from various regions and arranged according to some known system of classification for future use, that is for identification, nomenclature, and also for preserving the records. Now let's see how this herbarium has started. So no doubt that whatever botany research and the development have taken, it always started in Europe. It all started, dates back almost 400 years back in Italy, Europe countries. The art of this art of herbarium was initiated by an Italian taxonomist from Bologna, Luca Ghini. So he was basically a professor of medicine and botany. During those days, there is no demarcation between the animal and botany professors. It was same. The human doctor and plant doctor was same during those days. So he was the physician too. And in the University of Pisa during 16th century, what out of his interest, what he has done, he has collected the plant material and he pressed against some thick handmade papers. And during those days there was a traditional habit of making this herbarium. All these sheets were bound into a book. See, you can see in that picture, I have shown in that picture that bound volume of herbarium. It's not like a present days. Those days all the collected herbarium sheets will be bounded into a book. So Luca Ghini also credited for developing a botanical garden at Pisa. So he had almost collected 300 species in 1551, but unfortunately much of them were lost. We don't have anything. And his student Sibo continued this act, and his herbarium is still preserved in Rome. So, and his three more students who are found to spread this art throughout the world, they are Aldrovandis, Cisalpino from Italy, and Turner from England. They made their own herbaria and they started teaching people how to make this herbaria. They went on world tours to teach this art. So we can say herbarium is an art of science. The first herbarium ever found herbarium is the book is known as NTB. ENTIB, NTB. In the class, beginning of the class, I was telling that smiling garden of everlasting flowers. So this NTB means here for you a smiling garden of everlasting flowers. It was named beautifully in that book. So what they wanted to say, so if you dry the plant also, it has life. It is source for many things, which we'll see in the functions of herbarium. So this NTB is the oldest book of herbarium, Now it went on to many countries. Finally, it is in Netherlands now. Netherlands Museum. So now look at this picture. This is the historical timeline of 60th century Italian herbaria, how it was started. He is the Luca Guini, who has initiated the herbarium art, and that is the Antibi book, and all these three, Merini, Cibo, Aldrovandi and Cisalpino, all these three great disciples of Luca Guini has spread this art of herbarium to entire world. So during those days, those sheets are not called herbarium, that books are not called herbarium. They used to call it as Hortus Siccus, that means dry garden, or Hortus Hyemalis, that is known as winter garden. So only during the 18th century, the word herbarium was introduced. Herbarium is a singular, herbaria is plural, was introduced. However, this was first applied by Pitton de Tournefort in his book Elements de la Botanique. So this Pitton de Tournefort also credited for coining the word genus in taxonomical hierarchy. So he has introduced the word herbarium. And one of our famous taxonomists, the father of plant taxonomy, the Swedish naturalist Carolus van Linnaeus, he has advised in his books in 1751, this Philosophia Botanica in 1751, he has given advice that mount these dried plants onto one specimen per sheet and refrain from binding the sheets together. So it will be helpful for us, because in the bounded books we cannot add any sheets anymore. If something spoiled, we cannot pluck it out. If you find a new species in between, you cannot incorporate. So Carolus van Linnaeus introduced the present system of herbarium making, where we keep them in a loose form and arrange according to some known form of classification. Whenever we find a new species or a new plant, we keep where it belongs exactly. So herbarium has a long history from 400 years. Since it has a lot of functions, it has been developing and developing. Now let's see the significance of this herbarium. Why is this herbaria? Why should we develop this herbaria? So as we know, this is invaluably conservatory of dried plant material collected from various parts. We know it has collected from various parts. For example, if you are living in a place, in a particular town, you may, in your college, you collect from various parts of your town. Maybe some villages, some suburbans, or nearby hills, near the water lakes. You collect it from it and preserve. So from various places you can keep. So it provides at one place the basic material for study of flora and vegetation of the different places. So if you want to study a flora for your place, if you have that specimen copies in your college, you can just go to that place and study. So it is an invaluable conservatory at one place of plant specimens. So since we know this, herbarium makes a permanent record of flora. So we have a record of flora for past 400 years. Once you make it, we have different techniques to preserve it. We'll discuss in next class. And it will be forever. So it will be a record of flora of different regions. It can serve as a physical evidence of the vegetation of the region, which may be lost due to natural catastrophes. Say for example, in a place you have recorded the plant specimen in the herbarium, due to some natural calamities like floods or heavy rains or forest fire, that entire vegetation of that place may be lost. Still, you can have that physical evidences in the herbarium. So that's how this herbarium stands as a physical evidence of storehouse of this vegetation of our place. These specimens, I have already told, this herbarium sheet, it contains a label. So this label, it has habitat and local names and family, color of the flowers, other characters of the plants, native plants and abundance, frequency of occurrence and associated plants, everything it has. So this data, it will provide a valuable information for the morphological description and range of variation, distribution and utilization of the same plant at various places. So it is very useful for botanical, ethnobotanical and phytogeographical reasons. So distribution of particular species in various areas can also be studied by using this. And this will serve as a collection of biodiversity. So most estimates on global biodiversity today are based on herbarium collection only. They never get into the forest or the areas and study what type of biodiversity we have. They just go to the herbarium of that places. Since it is recorded in all the places of world, it is recorded in the nearby herbariums. It will be studied from that. From that we can know the endangered species. From that we can prepare the monographs. So it is a collection of biodiversity. And moreover, it serves as an aid in teaching botany. See, for example, I wanted to teach a family, for example, Anonaceae or a Fabaceae or Fagaceae family. These families, they never bloom entire season, entire year. Okay? During the course, I wanted to teach you that, but I don't get the fresh material. What I do, I pick up a herbarium sheet and I'll show you as a specimen. I'll show you all the vegetative and reproductive parts. So it will be as a teaching aids to teach botany in the classrooms. So it is also used as a reference centers of identification. If you want to do research in any field using a plant, you need to identify and get authentication from the herbarium authorities. Before going to do any research on plant materials, you remember this in the future for your research works also. Whenever you choose a plant, maybe you know the name of the plant also, but you need to get the proper authentication from the nearby herbarium authorities. For example, if you're in a college, so that whichever affiliated university you belong to, you go to that university. There will be one professor who is assigned this duty, who is authenticated to sign this. You should get authentication. If it is not found in the universities, you should go to the nearby botanical surveys of India, which we have so many branches in India. So we should go to them and get the authentication. It is very easy. You can just post them. They will within no time with the proper certificate. It is their duty to properly give the authentication and identification of particular species that you are interested in. So the voucher specimens preserved in various herbaria. So whatever specimens we are preserving, they have an index telling that on what plants research has undergone, like chromosomes, phytochemistry, palynology, whatever it is undergone, it will have index. If you want to go for future research, you can go to herbaria, and which plant to pick up, you can have the easy information there. Now, we have studied in the first class that classification not like before, like taking some morphological characters into consideration. We don't classify nowadays. What we do, we take the information from various branches of botany, pull up together, and finally we conclude the correct position of that plant. For that we need information. For that, the voucher specimens, that it will be in the index. So this in the biosystematic research, a scholar, he needs to study about the taxa wherever it is distributed in the entire world. Is it possible for any student to go around the entire world to study it? No, but this herbaria, since it has the collection, and we can study. And nowadays most of these herbarium maintaining the e-herbarium also. So we can have online access. So all will be scanned and kept it. Almost most of the plants are scanned and kept online also. We should write to them, we should mail to that herbarium that we need to do so many things, we need some information. It will be freely given to all people who wants that information from Herbaria. You can see the scanned copy of all specimens. And this actually in herbarium, in the label, we write when it flowers and what are the associated species around it, so that it will be helpful for the embryology, cytology and ecological people. Because due to this natural, maybe due to natural catastrophes or human intrusion, or maybe lowering of ecological services, what's happening, then so many species are getting into the red data list now. So when you want to study them, what are the natural plants associated with, this information also will be useful. So the herbaria also have proved to be very valuable source of ethnobotanical researchers, as many native uses of them recorded from various places. For example, you have a plant, mint plant, I say. You have some use in your plant. In some other area, they have some other use in the plants. In some entire world, if you take, it has many uses. So if you want to study the ethnobotanical uses of any plant, you can read from the herbaria. So list of endangered plants also we can get it from the herbaria. Monographs of genera and families are prepared. What are monographs? Monographs means, for example, monograph of a genera, if a single genera. So whatever species are available under that genera will be a monograph of that genera. Monograph of families will have the whatever genus are present in that family will have that information. That is a family monograph. So like that, monograph of genus and families can be prepared by this beautiful herbarium. So world classification of flora is mainly dependent on associated with this herbarium material only, and our national plant wealth provides scientific information to public regarding the plants. So how wealthy we are, what is our great biodiversity. India is a country, vast country with very good biodiversity, we say, because of our rich herbarium sources, we say that. But day by day, due to our intrusion, our negligence, our greediness, over-exploitiveness, what's happening? This is getting done. So as a botanist, we should take care, we should preserve them. A big herbaria provide a training facilities to young students for herbarium practices. It's not as easy as I say, just write and press it. We need to follow certain techniques. For that, the training will be given by these herbarium centers. So these are some of the functions. So we have studied so many of it. It is mainly used for identification of plants. Now let's see the kinds of herbarium. How many types of herbaria? So based on the interest of the organization or institution, the contents of holding of labels, notes and sheets of herbariums, they vary accordingly. For example, Botanical Survey of India. This herbarium contain collection from all parts of the world. So it has all types of plants. For example, next one, pharma industries. What is the interest of pharma industries? They are interested only in drug preparation. So the herbaria contain medicinal flora used for drug extractions. And universities and colleges. In our universities and colleges, we have herbarium flora included in whatever is in our syllabus and research. And agriculture universities and colleges, they have herbaria of crop plants and weeds cultivated. So they have crop plants herbaria and weeds in the cultivated crop plants. So based on the interest of the institution, herbarium will be prepared. Now let's see the important herbarium of the world. So the first herbarium was found in University of Padua, Italy in 1545. The student of Luca Guini has prepared this. Then this systematic development of herbaria was started during 18th century with the efforts of Linnaeus in Sweden and Roxburgh in India. It was started. So this, according to Index Herbarium of Harmagon et al. In 1981, they told that there are about 1,600 recognized herbaria in the world, excluding the large or smaller unrecognized herbaria of universities and colleges. For example, in each our colleges will be having herbaria, but they don't come under this. So we have almost 1,600 herbaria, and this Missouri Botanical Garden in St. Louis, USA, this publishes a valuable monthly newsletter entitled Herbarium News, covering the different herbarium in the world. If you follow this, you will be easily knowing what type of new species have been identified and where it is placed. So if you get into some research, you will be having information regarding this. The total number of herbarium specimens reported from different institutions in the world are now more than 250 million species we have. Now look at, in these slides I have given you some of the important herbarium of our world. The number one is Royal Botanical Garden, Kew, India. It has England. It has almost 6.5 million herbarium in its account. And this Museum of Natural History, Paris, France, Komarov Botanical Institution, Leningrad, Russia, Conservatory of Botanical Garden, Geneva, Missouri Botanical Gardens, St. Louis, USA, New York Botanical Garden, Bronx, USA, British Museum of Natural History, London, United Kingdom, Gary Herbarium of Harvard University, Cambridge University, Swedish Museum of Natural History, Stockholm, Sweden, National Herbarium, Netherlands, University of Uppsala, Sweden, University of California, Berkeley, USA, Botanical Survey of Calcutta, India. All these are the very important herbarium of the world. Now we'll see the famous herbarium of India, and I just given this when it's in the table, then when it was established and the total number of herbarium it has got. Central National Botanical Garden is the oldest this herbarium that has been established in India by Roxburgh. The Botanical Survey of India, Southern Circle, Botanical Survey of India, Northern Circle, Botanical Survey of India, Eastern and Western Circle, and Botanical Survey of India, Industrial Section, Botanical Survey of India, Central Circle. We have almost 7 BSI branches, Botanical Survey of India branches in India, which covers the entire biodiversity of our India. We know our India is a subcontinent very rich in biodiversity, and almost it has taken 200 years to explore the entire biodiversity of India. And the Forest Research Institute, Dehradun, also one of the famous research institute of this herbarium. These are some of the major herbariums of India. And when you see this minor herbarium, and we have one at Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and we have Arid Origin Circle at Rajasthan, another BSI branch, Arunachal Field Section, and Sikkim Himalayan Circle Botanical Survey. There are some sub-branches which cover the lake. So more you decentralize the herbarium centers, more information you will have, more hold on biodiversity will have, and more information on ecological adaptations will be having. And Delhi University Herbarium, Rajasthan University Herbarium, School of Plant Morphology, Meerut College of Herbarium, and Layard Botanical Garden, Darjeeling also serves as the minor herbariums of India. See, there are so many herbariums nearby also. We can have our own herbarium at home. So whatever plants we grow in our garden, we can take seasonally and stick, and we can see. So year by year it will be a great, it will be aesthetic and mental relaxing, stress relaxing activity. It is an art which has a life. So students, in this class we have studied regarding the introduction, history and functions of herbarium. So next session, let's study the herbarium techniques in detail. That I request you to go through this video 2 to 3 times so that you understand this basic information so as to learn the techniques. Thank you.